This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. For a free 10-day unlimited trial, visit lynda.com/MacVoices. And by Casper, a better mattress for a better night's sleep. To find out more, try one for 100 days and get a $50 discount. Visit casper.com/MacVoices. Welcome to the MacJury on MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have a great panel tonight to discuss a topic or topics that I have not told them about. So if you've read the show description, you have more of an idea than they do. And I think this is about the perfect panel for this particular set of topics because I'm kind of curious to see what the responses are going to be and where we end up. Let's find out who's here. First up, as we do always, ladies first, Miss Kelly Gamot. Kelly, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
I'm really excited to be here. I can't wait to find out what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we don't usually do mystery topics, so this will be fun. Tell folks where they can find you and what you do and who you are and why you're here.
Oh, gosh, that's a lot. I do a lot of things. I do support and social media for Smile Software. And when I'm not doing that, I'm writing for Mac Observer. And when I'm not doing that, I volunteer at App Camp for Girls. And and then the rest of the time, I do a podcast with Mike Rose called The After Show. And you can find me on Twitter as Verso, and you can find various stuff that I have written and opportunities to chat with Jeff Gamet over at MacObserver.com.
That's a lot.
I think that covers it.
That's a lot. That's good. It's good to have you. Next up, from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Mr. Peter Cohen. Peter, it's great to have you.
Hi, Chuck. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
It has been. It has been. It's always good to have you back. What's your current haunt these days?
imore.com is where I do all of my writing. And you can find me on the social things at Flarg, Flargh.
Great. And you're doing a great job because I can't tell you how many of your articles, it's like I flip them into MacVoices magazine so I can save them and go back and reference them. So
thank you very much. Yeah, I'm the Mac managing editor over there, so if you've got questions on your Mac, feel free to hit me up on social media. I'm always happy to help.
Great. Last but absolutely not least, we haven't seen him for a while either, Mr. Chuck Latornos. Chuck, it's great to have you back.
Thanks, Chuck. I was starting to think I had offended you or something on my last visit because it's been a while. But I'm around these days writing for just about whoever will have me, so that means most of the time right now it's macworld.com, still contributing over at themacobserver.com every once in a while. And of course, there's random access, 2 M's, 2 C's, 2 S's, trailcamper.com, which is the intersection of high adventure and high technology. And I'm now a regular panelist on the Mac Show on the British Tech Network.
That's great. That's great. You too are staying quite busy.
I am, indeed.
Okay. So, and by the way, you did not offend me. We just haven't convened a whole lot of Mac juries through the first part of this year for no real good reason other than just it's been a very busy year. So that's it was no offense given or taken.
Very good. Thank you.
Just to be,
either way.
Yeah, just to be clear. Just to be clear. All right, guys. So I want to start off with streaming music, and I know that this has been beat to death to some degree, but I'm curious for you three. Do you subscribe to a streaming service? And if you do, which one or which ones and kind of why? And Peter, how about if I start with you?
No, actually, I don't. I mean, I've got, free accounts set up on services like Spotify, but I use them very rarely. Maybe I'm old school. Maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know, but I want my music. I want to own my music. I want to actually have my music. So the only subscription service that's music related that I have is a monthly subscription that I get for eMusic, emusic.com, which enables me to download indie music, classical, jazz, all sorts of other stuff, typically for a fraction of what it would cost on iTunes. So my music bang for the buck is better But I don't actually subscribe to streaming music services like Beats Music or Spotify or anything like that.
I'm a little surprised. Okay, good. Kelly, how about you?
I'm in the same boat as Peter. Except that I use Spotify occasionally for free, and I use iTunes Radio occasionally for free, but mostly I'm really fussy about what I want to listen to. So I end up building playlists and syncing a ton of stuff to my phone. So either my phone, or I still have a 5th generation iPod Video, the 5.5 gen, I think it ended up being named, where it was like the first one that could actually play video on the screen. And it's 80 gigabytes, and I use that a lot. I will stock that up and use it as the primary audio source in my car for the most part. I find that as I've gotten older, and maybe it's because I've searched harder for music because I don't spend as much time listening to regular terrestrial radio as I used to, that a lot of stuff I like to listen to isn't available on stuff like iTunes Radio or maybe on Spotify or things like that. Like sometimes the depth of the catalog just isn't there for me personally. So I end up building playlists myself and acquiring music through other stuff, whether it's iTunes or Amazon or even places like eMusic, which is a name I haven't actually heard in a really long time. They had a special, it was right before I got married, so it would have been 2000. They had a special where if you spent a certain amount of money, they sent you an MP3 player. And it was a fantastic MP3 player because you could get an SD card at 128 meg. And you could take that 128 megabyte card and you could put it in there and you could have like 2 hours of music on your little Creative Rio MP3 player. It was the future.
Okay, so this is stacking up really well. Chuck? I'm serious. This is good. Chuck, how about you?
It must be a 3-person boat because I'm in the same one with Kelly and Peter.
Wow.
Yay!
I did subscribe to Pandora for a while. And then when iTunes Match came out, if you subscribed to iTunes Match, you got iTunes Radio for free. So that was sufficient for me. That was fine. I enjoyed the higher bitrate quality of the music on iTunes Radio when you have it as part of the package. I do listen to Spotify on a free subscription service, and I get enough out of that. I don't find the ads really intrusive, and very often they'll say, if you listen to one ad, we'll give you a half hour of music for free, ad-free. And that's fine with me too. I even had satellite Sirius XM radio in my car for a while when I first bought it. I think they gave me a 3-month or 6-month subscription, and I couldn't wait for it to run out because I just hated it. It was just awful. I hated having to keep flipping the button to try to find a song I like. So between podcasts and listening to my own playlists and iTunes Radio and the free Spotify, that just really covers me really, really well. I mean, I generally listen to music mostly in my car during my hour and a half commute each way, or when I'm out mowing my yard, and it works perfectly.
Okay, and
sorry for the lack of diversity on the panel here.
No. Actually, I told you this was just about my ideal panel, and this is almost perfect for where I really want to go with this. Just to round it out, I do have a Spotify subscription, and my logic was that for what I was spending on new music, I could have access to all of it everywhere. So it made a lot of sense. And that's all I'll say about that until we get that a little farther down the road. I do have a Pandora account. It's no longer premium, but I still use Pandora quite a bit as well. So those are my two. I've tried the Beats. I've tried a number of the streaming services. Just they kind of leave me cold.
Yeah. Maybe you needed younger people on the panel because maybe it is a generational thing. Other than Kelly, who's much younger than any of us. But
wait a minute.
You don't even go there, John. So, I mean, as Peter alluded to, Steve Jobs famously said people want to own their own music, and maybe it is just people of a certain generation, but I find it very true. I don't want to lose access to all my music once I stop paying the subscription.
And I think somehow, I don't know if it's just because it's how I was hardwired, but there's something sort of exciting about getting the disc in the mail and liner notes. Like for me, that's the biggest thing. The reason I was the most excited about CDs is because the text got a little bit, you could have the same small text you had in cassettes, but you could have like pages and pages, so you could get all the lyrics, you could get the credits about something, people can put different stuff into those liner notes. And for me, that's another piece of the experience that I think is really nice. So I like that stuff, like, and particularly with bit rates and stuff, I find that I will occasionally grab a CD and then rip it at like low quality if I just want to put it on my phone, because there's no speaker on my phone, and there's no speaker I hook my phone up to that is so nice that I need to worry about it being a 320 MP3. And if I have a smaller bit rate, then I can get more music on my phone. So for me, that's a thing that I do sometimes. Like if I know I'm going to listen to it, I keep pointing over my shoulder because there's a really nice AV room right on the other side of this closet. If I want to play through the 4-foot tall Bowers and Wilkins speakers that are in the other room on the surround sound, and I want to do that, then yeah, I want the 320 on a digital file so that it sounds worthy of running through the amp and out into those speakers. But for the most part, like in my car, in my stock stereo, if I'm using the Bluetooth receiver that I bought to put in my car, those are, I'm never going to get the 320 out of that. I'm never going to notice. And so I'll use a lower bit rate for that and then a higher bit rate for the nicer stuff like the big speakers in the other room.
Okay, so we're going to get to step one of where I wanted to go with this discussion. And I say the you three are perfect because you're not subscribing to these services. So, and Peter, we'll go back to and start with you. How do you just discover new music? Because that seems to be the big thing about so many of these streaming services. Curated playlists, and therefore you're able to discover new music. How do you discover new music? Because I have the impression that you're a pretty up-to-date music kind of guy, and I'm dead serious about that.
I don't really stay on top of musical trends, and I don't listen to a ton of pop either, but I am a regular consumer of music. I download music regularly, and so does my wife. And my wife introduces me to a lot of new stuff that I wouldn't listen to otherwise. She's introduced me to a number of bands recently that I'd never heard before. And her method of discovery is to hear stuff on the radio or to read stuff on websites that interests her, and then listening to stuff. But in terms of like where I find new music, it's really all over the map. I mean, sometimes I'll find interesting stuff, or I'll listen to interesting stuff in a store, and I'll whip out my iPhone, pull out Shazam, and try to find out what it is. A lot of times it's music in TV ads. I've bought more music from listening to them in TV ads than I can possibly account for. And a lot of times in that case, it's not new music. It's stuff that might be 4 or 5, 6 years old, but it's stuff that's new to me. I also work a retail job on the weekends. I work at an Apple retailer near my house. And the other people that I work with regularly DJ, if you will. They'll come up with playlists that we listen to during the day. And that is certainly another avenue for me to experience new music. Plus I scan the radio when I'm in my car. I listen to NPR most of the time, but sometimes I'll also just scan the radio and, hit the local pop stations or the local rock stations to hear what's playing. And sometimes I'll get turned on to new stuff that way. I think that there are a lot of different ways that I discover music. I wouldn't say that I have one consistently that I go to more than any other, although my wife seems to be a big source of what I've been listening to lately.
Interesting. Okay. Family member. Chuck, how about you?
A lot of the same ways that Peter does. I also have 3 pretty grown children at this point. And so my daughter used to introduce me to an awful lot of music, and I would copy things, that she had bought just to try to keep up. She lives in Georgia now, so I don't hear as much music from her. But I do still get it from my boys. I have 2 sons, 21 and 17. So, they're listening to things that I wouldn't otherwise be exposed to, I think. My wife as well, she's more into pop. So, I'll listen, I'll discover Meghan Trainor and, Bruno Mars and, those kind of people. And it's pop, but some of it is fun and I like it. And, it's my guilty pleasure, I think, is listening to Meghan Trainor right now. And I'll get a lot of good music from TV commercials as well. I have the same thing, instant Shazam and find out what it is and then buy it from iTunes right away. And then I think the Spotify and the smart playlists on iTunes Radio and Pandora help me out a lot too. I'll start with something I like, and invariably I'll hear things that I either haven't heard of at all or haven't heard for years, and that'll bring them back into the fold for me. I think that about covers it. The terrestrial radio as well. I'll flip through things. For me, a lot of the discovery comes though in things that get me deeper into the genres that I already like. So I'll start off with Arturo Sandoval, an album of his on Spotify, and then I'll get deeper into some of the old jazz masters that I haven't heard for a while, and I enjoy that.
Okay. This is all very surprising to me. Kelly, since you're the youngest member of the panel, as Chuck was kind enough to point out.
Well, I get actually a fair amount from Peter because wherever he's getting it from, he comes out and says, I can't stop listening to this song. And then all of a sudden, I too cannot stop listening to this song. And I get a lot from not just commercials, but TV shows. There are some shows that, like I know on CSI, when they do the little montage of like, now it's science, there's always some interesting song that's playing there. And that sometimes will be something that I listen for. And then one of the things, and I get Rolling Stone magazine, actual paper delivered to my house. So I read that cover to cover every time one shows up. And I read about a lot of musicians that way. And the other thing that I like to do is something that I've done for as long as I can remember, which is if there's a band that I like, and I go read and I read interviews with them. Like when I was very, very young, I would hear different bands talk about, like I really like electronic music. So I would hear Depeche Mode and Duran Duran and all these guys, like they would all name check Kraftwerk. And so I'm like, well, I should probably find out what that's about. And then I would have to go find people I knew who had Kraftwerk albums, and then I could listen to that and kind of see what the deal was. And then when I like rock bands, and they would all start going, well, I wouldn't have even bothered with this if it wasn't for Led Zeppelin. And then I went back and started listening to Led Zeppelin to find out like what was it about that turned into this band that I really like to listen to now. And I still do that. So if there's people name checking stuff that I maybe haven't heard before, I'll go check it out. So, if I'm reading an article about a band or a person that I really like, then finding out, because that's always a common question in interviews of musicians, is like, is who influenced you, who inspired you to get into music yourself? And so I will go check those out if they're things I haven't heard before. And that's always interesting. But I do have a really odd Shazam history for that reason. Like I'll be standing somewhere and go, who's that? And, and my husband will look over, and there I am, like looking for a speaker and holding my phone to the ceiling, and he's just shaking his head like, I'm not with her. But and I get recommendations from other people. Like I know Peter, for example, is someone who talks a lot about music in general. And so when he says stuff, I will talk about it, or I will pay attention, because I know that he has successfully recommended things that I've enjoyed in the past. So I'll check him out, or other people that I know who listen to music that I also enjoy. I'll end up using that as like a springboard, and I'll do sort of like Chuck was saying, I'll go build an iTunes station, and I'll say, here's like 5 songs I really like, and go, and just see what I get.
That's a really good point. That's something I do too. And it's funny because I didn't mention iTunes Radio initially, but I've definitely had good luck building iTunes radio stations and then kind of letting it go, and then finding interesting stuff and going, oh, this is great. This is interesting. And then I end up tagging it, for later perusal in iTunes, and end up spending more money than I really wanted to begin with.
Right.
The problem that I've got is that I'm like, for whatever reason, and this is definitely a generational thing, because I know my kids, for example, and I've got 3 kids. They're mostly a little bit younger than Chuck's are. Mine are 19, 18, and 15. they are not afraid to listen to singles that they like. My thing is that if I hear a song from a band that I like, I'll go and listen to another song by that band. And if I like that, then I'll just buy the album.
Right.
Mhm.
But I want the whole damn album. I don't just want the 2 songs that I know I like. I want the album. And that, I think, it's like a hardwired, Gen X boomer thing to do, is to go out and buy the album of the band that you like. And most of the time, I'm very happy with my purchase. But sometimes, obviously, you can't put lipstick on a pig, or at least not too much. And I end up disappointed. But iTunes Radio, for me anyway, has been a great way to discover new music too.
Yeah, that's a great point, Peter, because I think that the concept of listening to an album is almost alien to kids these days. Everything is the song,
Mhm.
and the thought of the dynamics of an album and the song placement and why it matters and how it builds and tells a story or whatever is just a foreign concept these days. My older son has now started to discover vinyl. So we just bought him a record player. And so now he's building up a vinyl collection, and we're breaking out all the stuff that we had from the 70s and 80s and playing albums through. And it's a completely different listening experience.
Now, I think it's worth pointing out here that Chuck Laternos comes at this from a different perspective than I do. I'm just an aficionado of music. I have a large music library, but he's a musician. So when he talks about, the progression of songs through an album and sort of the gestalt of the album, I think that he's looking at it with a critical eye that is foreign to a lot of people outside of that that art, in terms of making music. And the bottom line is, people generationally consume music very different now, thanks to iTunes and thanks to other music services, than they did 15 or 20 years ago, or 30, 40 years ago, whenever it was that we started to listen to music. From my perspective, I think I bought my first album when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And, certainly had albums that were my mother's that I had listened to prior to that. But, it was that experience of going out and saving the, $8 or whatever it was for an album back then, or a cassette, that was sort of the formative experience and informed me about how I should consume music. Because, then I got 7 or 8 other great songs that I didn't know, from the musician. But then I could also, hear things and experience that in a different way than I would have just being familiar with the single and a B-side.
Yeah, that's part of what bothers me about the fact that we've lost albums too, though, is that everything we consume now is basically a single, at least the modern stuff that comes out. And there are things that you have to have when you're producing a single, when you want something to stand on its own and be popular. And I think you lose nuanced music, things that may have been the 3rd or 4th track on an album that may touch even more deeply than that hit single might. But it'll never get the kind of exposure that it used to when it was part of an album that you purchased. It's never going to stand on its own that way. But it may be something that winds up being more important to you or connecting with you deeper, to repeat myself, than that single did.
And there are a lot of albums that I remember from growing up that were that way, where the song that everyone I knew, like in my circles, the song that everyone liked off the album was never the song that was ever played on the radio ever. To this day, you don't hear that song on the radio, but everybody remembers that album because it had that particular song. And also sort of the journey that you are taken on by an artist when you put an album together. There's a certain amount of artistry in that, not just the execution of the music, but putting something together that tells a story. And when you sit down to write songs for an album and you're writing 12 songs, or you want to end up with 12 songs at the end that you want to put out, I know it can be 10, I know it can be 15. I'm just sort of making some examples here from musicians that I have known, and from all the music I've consumed in my life. But you take those songs, and sometimes what you want to do is take a listener on a journey, and you have to write a lot of stuff in order to get there. And so you end up recording a bunch of songs, and maybe some of those are great, and maybe they end up on another record, or maybe 20 years from now, once you've conquered the world, you put out the album that has the B-sides and stuff on it, and the things that the outtakes and the stuff that never got finished from a particular album. Like, that's the kind of stuff that now we really like to hear. With the advent of the CD box set and all of those kinds of things, it makes it a really interesting thing to have that stuff to get more context around the time of the recording and how that stuff was going. And, when you take, the first example that comes to my mind is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, since I'm just going to go ahead and name some names here. That's an album that takes you on a journey, and it, and it's a very specific journey. It's sort of taking you through a certain thing. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Peter will probably be the only other person who's listened to this one, but Nightlife by the Pet Shop Boys is another one of those albums that starts at the beginning and takes you on a certain journey through an evening in the life of this person and the relationship that they have and how that goes, and finding those albums that are amazing all together. Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine is a great album as a unit as well. So you can tell my music tastes run far and wide. That experience, like Peter was talking about, you go home and you sit and you listen to it and you devour the whole thing, and then you flip the tape over and you listen to it again. That's a very specific experience, and things like Spotify have sort of eliminated that. And whether it's for better or worse, it's kind of a bummer, because that's a thing that I really enjoy and have always really enjoyed. And I'm sort of disappointed that that's not something that people can experience with current music, that there's not people. It almost feels like it's a different process as a recording artist today, because you just need to make sure that you're churning out singles, basically.
Yeah.
Like a single, and maybe there's a B-side that goes with it.
On the other hand, musicians aren't required to make albums the way that they used to.
Right.
If they're not signed to a major label, if there isn't major label money behind their production, they can. And, we certainly know musicians who work independently of that system, but are still capable of putting out product and content that can be compelling. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, that process, or that ecosystem that's developed since iTunes has sort of rose to the influence that it did when it peaked, has inexorably changed the way that we consume music, but it also changes the way that artists can actually produce it.
Yeah, and Kelly, as you were describing that album process, it made me think that maybe the only place that this still really exists is in live performances. When you're creating set lists, whether you're a club band or you're a big performer on tour, you're still crafting that set list that still has those different dynamics. You need the valley between the two mountains. It not only helps the song in the valley, but it makes the songs on either side of it more powerful too, because you're hearing them in a larger context and not just the 3 minutes and 12 seconds that the single takes up.
I love where you guys have taken this, because it's exactly where I wanted to go, the discussion with singles, albums, more from a discovery standpoint. When you say you discover music, and I think you all kind of answered this, do you discover tracks? Do you discover albums? Do you discover bands? The one thing, though, that, and Chuck, you're a musician, so you would know a little better than I, but I've read enough things, I've heard enough musician interviews, and known some people that were involved in these things. And I wonder if our perception of an album is something that's been crafted by the music industry. Because you hear all these things about how, okay, the band takes in 20 songs, and they get this much input, and the record company gets this much input into what actually goes into the album, as opposed to saying, oh, it's an artistic endeavor that, yes, we started here, Kelly, to take yours. We start here and we end there. I'm not saying that there are no albums that may not have that, because maybe the artists were big enough and influential enough to get their way. But I just wonder if we don't ascribe something to albums that maybe isn't necessarily there.
Yeah, well, I think it used to be there. I can't speak for today. I don't keep up with the music business, and I never produced my own album. But there was enough culture and lore around how albums were created. That, I mean, that's a genre, album-oriented rock. Those were the FM stations of my day, where the order of songs did matter, and there was a lot of thought that went into it, whether or not it was battles between the labels and the artists, and who was right and who was wrong. But we had the Beach Boys with Pet Sounds. I mean, that's a concept album. You have all the Pink Floyd stuff, for the most part, takes you on these big journeys. Even Donald Fagen, one of my favorite albums is, I can't even remember the name of the album.
The Night Flight.
Night Flight. Thank you so much. I mean, these are all stories, and I don't know whether it exists now. I think at this point it is more, let's get 5 singles in there, and maybe we don't care so much about the order of things. But I think there was a lot of thought about that back in the day.
I was just, it's funny that we should talk about this tonight, because I was chatting with some friends on Facebook, and they're like, what's your favorite Men at Work single? Men at Work, popular band in the 80s. A lot of people remember Down Under and Who Can It Be Now, which were their two big top 10 hits. And they had some other stuff off their second album that did well as well. But my favorite track on that was always Down by the Sea, which was never released as a single. It's a 7-minute track. It's gorgeous. It's not something that was radio friendly in the 80s. Right. But that's the sort of thing that you only find out about if you buy the album, or if you listen through the album, even if you're using Spotify to do it. And that's why I think, it's finding those little hidden treasures, finding those gems that you wouldn't hear otherwise, that, some A&R person at the music label decided wasn't worth trying to get on the radio, or wasn't worth producing a video for. That's the sort of stuff that you find out about when you start listening, when you start going deep, in these tracks and start exploring a little bit.
You mentioned video, Peter, and videos are a way that I used to discover music back when there were stations that played videos. I don't spend as much time on YouTube watching music videos as I used to do when I got a music television channel that actually played music on my television. So that was another way that I used to discover things, and that way is gone, and I'm kind of bummed about it.
It's still there, Kelly, if you look, because a lot of the number of videos is not still being produced, but there's an awful lot of stuff on YouTube. Is it the fact, though, that somebody's not pushing it at you?
Yeah, it's it was a channel on the TV. I could go to channel 25 and I would get half an hour of videos and then Kurt Loder, and then half an hour of videos and then Kurt Loder, and then rinse repeat. And I would hear things I liked, but I would also get to see, and find out sort of the visual mindset of particular bands, and sometimes just get to see an interesting music video.
And Kelly, just to make you feel old, Kurt Loder just turned 70.
Oh, man.
Beginning of the month.
Wow.
70. Kurt Loder turned
70?
Yeah.
Wait, and Ian McKellen is 75? 2 days ago, I think?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, no, he's 76.
76. Okay.
Yeah, so they are...
Yeah. No, I'm thinking of Frank Oz, because Frank Oz has the same birthday, and he's 5 years younger, so he's 71. So Kurt Loder and Frank Oz are a year apart.
Age is just a state of mind. It is funny, though, how we all react to it. That you look at some, and we all know people that are probably in their 70s. Well, there's may be some examples, and you just think, no, not really. And even 80s. I mean, look at William Shatner.
Yeah.
You can't believe he's 80.
That's what I was going to say. He's
all the
over
stuff
80.
he's into. Today's edition of MacVoices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. Get a full, free 10-day trial at lynda.com/MacVoices. I'd like to tell you everything there is to know about lynda.com, but that would take a long, long, long time. With over 3,500 courses on a huge variety of subjects, and more being added every week, Pretty much anything you want to learn about is there. Courses in photography, business, graphics, music, video production, design, the list goes on and on. One thing I really love about lynda.com is their iOS app, because it lets me learn when I want, where I want, whether I'm online or not. You'd be shocked at how effective a lynda.com course can be on a long plane flight. Instead of watching the in-flight movie that's constantly interrupted by the flight attendants, fire up the next lynda.com course in your playlist and be productive. This is what the app screen looks like with the course I'm taking on Evernote loaded and playing on my iPad. A few notes here. First, you see the downloaded indicator at the top. That means the course is available to me offline. I can keep as many lynda.com courses on my iPad as I want, up to the memory limit of the iPad. Next is the playlist indicator. Did you know that lynda.com has playlists already set up for information that you want to know about? And you can set up and customize your own as well. That makes loading a bunch of videos simple, whether you pick them or just use the pre-curated lynda.com playlist on your favorite subject. On the left side, you see the list of topics in the course and the approximate playing times of each. I really like this feature. It lets me skip things I might already know or easily go back and find something I need to repeat. And even though the course is over 2 hours, as you can see on the bottom left, it's chaptered, so I can get to where I want to be easily. The text and progress bar on the bottom left let me see how much of the course I've completed, and there's a description of the course if I'm queuing it up for the first time so I know what I'm about to see. There's also some information on the author, as well as a list of suggested courses. The player window is obvious, right? Well, not completely. Sure, it works like every other video window you've seen, but here's what might be my favorite part. Touch the gear icon and you get to choose the speed of playback. Slow it down to half speed if you want to see all the details of what's going on, or crank it up to 2x speed to double your effectiveness. And yes, you can train yourself to listen and watch at 2x speeds. I have an article about it on the MacVoices blog. So that's a quick tour of the lynda.com app for the iPad, also available on the iPhone and other mobile devices. You can take advantage of lynda.com's powerful tutorials right now by going to lynda.com/MacVoices and signing up for a free, full, unlimited 10-day trial. That's access to everything lynda.com has to offer for 10 days at no cost. Once you find out how great lynda.com is, you'll want to sign up, load up courses on your iPad, and head for the skies, or the seas, or wherever you have free time to learn. That's lynda.com/MacVoices for 10 days free with no restrictions. Do it now and learn something great. Thanks to lynda.com for their support of MacVoices. Okay, so I've been kind of setting you all up for this because this has been fascinating. I've asked you where and how you discovered new music, how you kind of consume it. In today's world, we have cord cutting, and we have this backlash against the cable companies and the networks and everything. And yet I know Peter and I've had this discussion that, Peter, I'm going to put words in your mouth. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you feel like recently it's been almost a golden age for TV, a new golden age. How do you go about discovering great video content? How do you go about choosing the TV shows that you decide to follow or watch, the movies that you decide to pay attention to, and for that matter, the podcasts or any other video online that you want to start paying attention to? How do you discover it?
It's an interesting question because consuming video content right now is like drinking from a fire hose. There is so much good stuff out there and so many good places to find it. It can be very overwhelming to try to find it. But here's the thing. The content providers are still acting as the gatekeepers for getting a hold of it. And one thing that really scares me about this is, in the store that I work in, people come in every day and they're like, I want an Apple TV. I want to cut the cord. I want to cut the cord. And we always have to slow them down and say, whoa. What do you mean by cut the cord? Well, I don't want to have to pay the cable company anymore to watch the shows that I like. Okay, well, what shows do you want to watch? Well, I want to watch Game of Thrones. I want to watch Happiness. I want to watch Shameless. I want to watch, and it's like, okay, well, if you're willing to pay HBO directly, you can watch HBO now and enjoy Game of Thrones and the other stuff. But there's no way to do that with Showtime yet. There will be soon, but not right now. And yeah, if you want to watch sports on ESPN, you got to have the cable package that allows you ESPN, because they are going to, they are gatekeeping. You know, they are going to verify your identity and verify your account before they give you access to that. If you're happy just with Netflix, that's fine. Oh, and by the way, kiss your local programming goodbye. You know, what I want and what there isn't, what I would subscribe to is a Spotify for video. If there was a Spotify for video, if I was allowed to pay a monthly fee and just get whatever I wanted to get, that would be one thing. But it doesn't exist right now. I have to have the right cable tier. I have to have a cable or a dish subscription. I have to have Netflix. I have to have Crunchyroll because I want my content from Japanese anime and Korean live action that I can't watch anywhere else. And what's ended up happening is that the video consumption business has balkanized in a way that the music industry didn't. Mm-hmm. And it's very consumer hostile. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be very expensive. The more that we hear about cutting the cord, the more we're going to be taking it in the seat.
Right.
Now, I'm already tithing, for Christ's sake, when it comes to my cable bill. I think I pay more for cable than I do for any utility. Mm-hmm. Maybe my electric bill. I pay a lot for electricity here on Cape Cod. My electric bill is probably neck and neck with my cable bill. But, you know, okay, I pay more in rent, I pay more in groceries, I pay more for a few other things. But absolutely, one of the biggest bills that I pay every month is my cable bill. And that's not just for all the channels that I watch. Admittedly, I've got a premium package, but I need the bandwidth because I work from home and I need a massive amount of download bandwidth because of what I do for a living. Now, that might be an edge case, but I talk to other people who are spending the same amount, if not more, with Comcast than I am. The only channel I don't get, ironically, is the movie channel. I get every movie channel but the movie channel. Go figure. But, you know, it's frustrating because I not only pay that, but I also pay a Netflix bill every month. And I use that Netflix bill because there's cool stuff on Netflix I want to watch that I can't see anywhere else. Like Daredevil, for example, and Orange is the New Black, and, you know, House of Cards and all that other good stuff, the original programming that they're starting to do. Like I said, the Crunchyroll subscription is absolutely mandatory because we're anime nerds in my house. So we want to watch the anime that we can't watch anywhere else. So that's right there, right off the top of my head. That's 3 different fees that I'm paying for video. Not to mention going out to Redbox because I want to see the latest video releases, or paying a fee so I can watch the latest, so I can rent the latest movie either from Comcast and through their on-demand service, or from iTunes when new releases come out on iTunes. So it's just nickel and diming me and nickel and diming me, and it's frustrating, and I hate it. And I want something to change, but I don't see anything changing, at least not that radically, because there's a huge amount of money for the video companies to make, and people are willing to pay it, at least right now. You know, so when I hear about a movie like Tomorrowland, you know, not doing so well, because it only raked in 30 or 40 million its opening weekend instead of the 65 or 70 or whatever it was that the critics were expecting. I'm like, cry me a river. You're going to make it back as soon as it comes out on video anyway. Yeah. Shut up.
Right. Well, and there's so many, doesn't have to be just video too. There's so many venues now and so many licensing deals. It's going to go to the airlines for in-flight entertainment. It's going to go to hotels for a while. Then it's going to go to Redbox and then cable, and then off of one so it can go back onto the other again at different fees. I, for one, would give up completely the ability to do the a la carte purchasing of TV if I could get honest to goodness competition. Because I think that's what we really, really need. We need
absolutely
Cox and Comcast in the same market, and Time Warner, all fighting for my dollars. And
two men enter, one man leaves.
That's right.
Thunderdome.
Right.
I would love a cable Thunderdome. It would warm my heart to have the cable Thunderdome. But I will say, because this was a crusade that I started, I don't even know how long ago, with HBO Now. HBO Go. When HBO Go first started, I started calling HBO's customer feedback line and saying, please let me give you money directly, because we don't have a whole lot of television at my house. Like, we don't pay for like the super high tier cable plan. And I would have to like upgrade. At the time, I would have had to upgrade like 2 tiers of cable plan just to be eligible to give Comcast more money. And I wasn't into that. So I called HBO every couple of months and said, hi, I would really like if you would let me pay you $20 a month so that I could have HBO and not have to give it to Comcast and not have to put up with that kind of nonsense. And we've all seen the pissing matches between the provider and the channel about how like AMC can't make a deal with Dish, and so now none of the Dish people get Mad Men this week. Nobody gets to watch Breaking Bad on the satellite dish because these guys over here in suits and these guys over here in suits are mad at each other and they're not talking, and so now I'm the one that loses. And so I feel like one of the cool things about Netflix is that dipping their toe into original programming turns them into a valid content provider, which is awesome. And they're doing really well with that. I mean, you know, Kevin Spacey doesn't screw around, and that's very nice. The thing that I don't understand is that the major record labels and the major movie studios are almost all the same companies. Like Universal is a record label, Universal is a movie company. And so it seems like at some point, all of these guys went through all of this with Napster 15 years ago and came out on the other side, and they're still making money. And maybe it's not the ridiculous 90s money that, like, because remember, everybody was making ridiculous money in the 90s. It wasn't just people selling records. And they should be able to come out on the other side of that and go, look, we survived. Like, it's okay. We let people buy what they wanted to buy, how they wanted to buy it, so they could listen to it on their newfangled devices with the MP3. And we're okay. We're still making money. And I really wish that the music people who learned that lesson would tell the movie people that this is what happened, so that the movie people and the content people would maybe understand that, you know, yeah, we hit a rough patch, but like, we've come out on the other side of that. And we've learned that, you know, if you give people the opportunity to make it easier to buy than steal, people are going to do it. But until I can buy a Blu-ray disc that doesn't start with an unskippable ad for Blu-ray, I'm going to think those guys didn't get that message.
I don't know that the record companies think that they did win, that they did survive. I think they got screwed over, and we're never going to let that happen again. We're never going to lose control to iTunes or anybody else.
Okay.
And we're going to protect our archaic business model, even if we need to go lobby Congress to pass laws in order to do it. But
I can see that.
We know what we want, we know what we have, and we want to keep it forever, even if it doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah,
I think that's absolutely right. I think that it's going to be a shell game. You know, sure, you're going to be able to do a la carte through HBO now, or you're going to be able to, you know, get this service. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you follow the money trail, it's still going to be the same fat cats, you know, raking in the money, because this is a multi-billion-dollar business. This is, I mean, this is one of America's chief exports abroad. You know, is our entertainment content. It's worth, you know, between movies and video games and music, it's worth hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars every year. Yeah, that is an enormous amount of money. And it's an enormous amount of money that these industries pay attention to. It's an enormous amount of money that politicians pay attention to. And it's an enormous amount of money that everybody who is part of the status quo is invested in making sure stays part of the status quo, and that there's no disruptive forces. So, and that's why I've laughed for years and years when I hear about Apple is going to disrupt, you know, the movie business with the next Apple TV, or even better yet, Apple is going to release a new television. You know, that windmill that the Don Quixote of Wall Street, Gene Munster, tilted at for years.
He finally gave up, didn't he?
He finally gave up just in time for Carl Icahn to come along and say, no, Apple's going to release a television in 2016. Well, Carl, wait a minute. Again, follow the money, right? This is basic journalism school stuff, and actually basic stuff that they should teach anybody with basic critical thinking skills before they get on the internet. What is Carl Icahn's reason for wanting to do this. Well, if he even pushes, the Apple stock price 25 cents, upwardly, he makes millions of dollars. He's one of Apple's biggest shareholders. So of course he's going to come out with ludicrous crap like, oh yeah, Apple's going to release a car any day now. Apple's going to release a transporter beam. Apple invented the warp drive. Apple has a pill that cures cancer, makes your penis grow longer, and makes you live forever and gives you a full head of hair. Awesome. All coming in 2017.
And then New Year's Eve 2016, he'll be like, yeah, they've delayed it because I leaked that information early. Right. We've seen this. We've played
Apple
this
failed because the stuff we made up about them is wrong.
Exactly.
He gets his advice from the Mystic Orient. He must know something.
So, Chuck, what was your original question?
Well,
who cares?
Funny that you should say that, Chuck, because I've just been letting you three go because it's been quite entertaining, and I'm sure everyone else will find it entertaining. But I want to come back and ask the same question again. And Peter, I'm going to go to you because you mentioned something that I think most of us are not familiar with. And I'm very serious about this. Crunchyroll, okay? Yeah. I'm not familiar with anime as to what's good anime, bad anime, or what is even available in anime.
The first thing you should know is that they're glowing things. The second thing you should know are their tentacles.
Yeah,
no, just kidding.
That's about all I know. So how do you discover good anime? The same way that maybe to do an analog, if I turn on ESPN, I'm going to get sports. Right? It may be a sport that I like, I hate, I don't know anything about, I think is stupid, or I worship. Same thing with Crunchyroll, but same thing really with everything. You can take that analog and pass it along everywhere. Kelly, where do you find out what's good science fiction and what's not? And Chuck, I don't know, where do you find out what's good music,
good camping equipment, and
good camping equipment. There you go. Yeah,
I think, and the process is organic, Chuck, and it's exactly what we were talking about before. Where you draw on the experience of people who who are into the same things that you are. Kelly was kind enough to say before that she knows that if I vouch for something on Twitter, going, "Hey, I'm listening to this," then it'll probably be something that she likes too, because she and I do have very similar musical tastes, but. In the same vein, Crunchyroll, first of all, because it's a service, because they offer a wide variety of content, I can just browse and say, oh, okay, well, that looks interesting. That doesn't, but I'm also friends with a lot of people who like anime, and I'm listening to what they suggest all the time. And my family and I, we go to anime conventions, a couple of times a year, and are exposed to new stuff there all the time as well. So if you're invested in the culture, the subculture of whatever you're interested in, whether it's solar power cells to let you use your laptop when you're in the middle of a national park someplace, or anime, or music, or stuff that makes your car run faster, you get invested by talking to people who are into the same things that you are. You go to the events where you're exposed to that sort of thing, and you subscribe to the media channels, either virtual, in the case of stuff like Crunchyroll, or physical in the case of Rolling Stone magazine, like Kelly was talking about before, to get interested in that stuff, and to read what other people have to say, what critics have to say, so-called experts, and just, get exposed to that whole thing.
This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Casper, a better mattress for a better night's sleep. To find out more, try one for 100 days and get a $50 discount. Visit casper.com/MacVoices and use the code MacVoices when you place your order. I'm really excited to welcome back Casper as a sponsor of Mac Voices. That's because I own and sleep on a Casper mattress, and I sleep very well. The folks at Casper are a bit obsessive about their mattresses. Obsessive in their desire to deliver a high-quality mattress at a shockingly fair price. Shockingly? If you've been shopping for a mattress recently, shockingly is the word for it. Mattresses are expensive, really expensive. Casper delivers a twin-size mattress for only $500 and a king size for only $950. Now that's shocking, but in a good way, and if you use the code MacVoices, you save $50 off that price. Oh, and that's the price, No surprise shipping charges, no surprise service fees. Of course, the real question is, how good is the mattress? How well does it suit you? Casper mattresses are a combination of latex foam and memory foam that give you just the right sink, just the right bounce. Yes, those are mattress technical terms, to give you the best night's sleep possible. And let's not forget how you buy a Casper mattress. Just go to casper.com/MacVoices, pick your size, and your Casper mattress arrives at your doorstep. No annoying salespeople, no laying down on a mattress in a showroom floor trying to figure out what the difference is between this mattress and that. Just go to casper.com/MacVoices to get an American-made Casper mattress that you can try free for a full 100 days. In the unlikely event that it doesn't suit you, they have a painless return process. But believe me, after a week on a Casper, you're not about to return it. You're wondering if a Casper mattress can really be that good, right? There's only one way to find out. Right now, go to casper.com/MacVoices, pick the size mattress you need, and use the coupon code MacVoices to get $50 off their already amazing price. You're in for the best night's sleep you've had in a long time. That's casper.com/MacVoices to check them out, and the coupon code MacVoices to get $50 off your choice of a high-quality, American-made twin, queen, or king mattress. Welcome back, and thanks to Casper for their support of MacVoices. So, Chuck, does that make us all tastemakers based on what it is that we're interested in? And I know Peter was poking fun at you for the camping stuff, but does that make you a tastemaker?
I think we're all tastemakers in our own circles. You know, we have people who share common interests, who respect us or know us for having some sort of expertise in something or another. That's where I get most of my recommendations, my discovery for video content, TVs and movies. That's friends and social media, way more than music. And also, I'll say, you know, mainstream media is where I find a lot of that stuff too. So, you know, if there's a show that I like on television, and they show commercials for, you know, other shows that are on that network, you know, I'm likely to pay attention to those movie trailers in films that I like to see. You know, those are things that I look forward to because I do want to discover things. Somebody mentioned something, a trailer on Twitter. You know, everybody mentioned the Star Wars trailer on Twitter, so you know, I was there within seconds looking at that too.
That was my first multiple orgasm. I was just.
Who cried when Han and Solo came?
Come on! Literally every time he said we're home, I would start bawling hysterically.
Oh God, it was so bad. It wore. Okay, so I have to point out the phenomenon that's happening right here, and it is the thing that I always called "No Kelly, just you." And I grew up in the wilderness, and I was the only girl that liked Star Wars. I was the only girl that read comic books. I was the only girl that played baseball. I was the only girl that liked computers. Whatever it was, there was like regular folks, and then no Kelly, just you. And the internet eliminated that. Mm-hmm. And it makes me so happy to know I wasn't the only person who teared up every single time Chewie were home. And it really was, and so to have that moment with you guys and see that that's like something that happened to a lot of people, it really makes me happy not to be the only one anymore. Yeah. And so that right there is huge. But yeah, I would say, just to jump on Chuck's point, the same as Chuck, my Twitter feed and my Facebook feed are where I find a lot of video.
So sometimes these internet connections can be a lot closer than even your familial connections. I was sitting watching the Star Wars trailer with my younger son, you know, sitting on the other couch in the same room, my wife on the other side of me, and it's the new trailer. Do you want to see it? And neither of them really cared. Neither of them wanted to see it with me. I was heartbroken. So after I watched it once, I went up to the bathroom, came back, and my son said, "Oh, what about at the end, Dad, where Chewbacca was there?" And I just flipped. I was the happiest dad in the whole world. I said, "Oh, let's talk about it." He's, "Dad, I'm just kidding. I only skipped to the end just to see what it said."
Oh, that's harsh.
Pick you up and pull you down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. How you paying for college?
What's funny about it is, just to flip that on its head. Sometimes my friends will talk about stuff that they like, and I don't get it. I just I don't understand, and it's interesting how individual. You know, you're talking about being a tastemaker before, Chuck. It's interesting about how individual it can be too, because like, I've had friends whose opinions I deeply respect on a lot of media stuff that I like, recommend a show to me or talk in glowing terms about a show. And then, I watch it and I'm like, this is crap. I just don't, to this day. And it's funny because I've actually cosplayed as Walter White. Never got into Breaking Bad. Never got into it. I know I'm a Philistine, but I just never did.
No.
It was just way too dark for me. As bizarre as that sounds, I couldn't get past the first couple of episodes, and I gave up on it. So there's stuff like that I think your social network can be an interesting sounding board and can validate, as Kelly was saying, the stuff that you like and the stuff that you're interested in, so you're not feeling like you're the only one who's into it. And in the same token, can alienate you a little bit because everybody else is talking about the cool thing that you just don't think is cool.
Yeah.
So it's kind of treacherous waters to kind of to navigate sometimes, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
This is really interesting, and I hope maybe some TV executives are paying attention to the previous rants, but as well as this. I was really curious to find out just where and how you got this. And it sounds like it's the same as it has always been. It's through friends. It's maybe through advertising, depending on what medium. But the social media aspect is really interesting, that we've made connections with other people that have similar tastes, even though they may not be geographically close. They may not even be that good of friends, but you recognize them as a kindred spirit, perhaps. And so you take it from that. Kelly, I'll admit, you're one of three people that, just kind of forced me into trying Doctor Who. I don't have the burning passion for it that you do, but it's been enjoyable, and
it's fun.
I would never have tried it without. So there you go.
That makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah, good. Well, then
now that's a thing I can talk to you about. That's the other thing about it, is that you end up, like Peter was talking about with conventions and stuff, you end up with like a shared language with other people. So, I can sit and talk to you, and, you can, I can be sitting and having a conversation with you and make a joke about something, and you will pick up what I'm putting down. And it's really nice to be able to have that sort of conversation, because until my husband turned out to actually start watching Doctor Who and enjoying it with me, I would say stuff to him and he would kind of go, "Is that Doctor Who?" And my cousin's daughter is super, super into Doctor Who, and I got to spend an afternoon sitting with her talking, and she was like, and her mom, my cousin, was very excited that she got to have somebody to talk about all this stuff with who had grown up with it, the whole time, and watched all the old stuff on PBS back in the day, and had a different perspective on some of those things, and was able to tell her some of the things that she wasn't really aware of. Like, oh, did you know that this moment was really important because of this thing that happened 40 years ago? And being able to have that conversation with somebody is always really great. So getting to have a conversation with you, Chuck, and be able to make a joke about not blinking or something like that is something that, I know that you will get that. And that's an exciting thing for me to be able to do, is because there are occasional, if you're not into Doctor Who and I start talking about stuff like that, it's not going to make any sense to you.
Well, be gentle with me, Kelly, because I'm not quite as versed in the lore as you are, but I do get the don't blink. So
the don't blink is a big one. So I figured you'd pick
I'm
that
right
up.
there with you.
You know what I think is really cool about all this, and a lot of us, maybe it's specific to the show and to your audience, Chuck, but a lot of us got connected with each other because of Apple and the Mac. And to me, it's really fascinating and a wonderful experience to find out how much more we all have in common, and all the other shared things that that make a much more well-rounded relationship, and becomes true friendships.
Absolutely.
Separated by distance.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet there are things that separate us in a positive way, because you and I have had this conversation individually, your love of camping and the outdoor stuff and all that. I mean, that's an aspect of you that I would never have guessed as a geek, but you have it, and then you put a geek spin on it. Mm-hmm. So
and there are things that separate us, like this ankle bracelet that prevents me from leaving this area code.
Peter, I doubt that the ankle bracelet is as tight as the tie. So
There you go.
there you go.
It is, however, the same symbol of patriarchal oppression.
Hey guys, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for the time and just for the
Sure.
exploring some of it. I'm not sure we solved anything, but I think it's really interesting to see where we all are, and maybe we discovered some new social patterns. I'm not sure. Chuck, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. It was great.
Kelly, it's always great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
And Peter, we'll see you at WWDC. I guess I'll see Kelly too, but I'll definitely see you at WWDC in San Francisco.
Yes, absolutely. See both of you guys in a couple of weeks. And Chuck, I'm sorry that I'm not going to see you.
Me too. Well, I'll
Yeah.
see you at the next Mac. Oh, never mind.
Oh,
Ouch. Ouch. On that note, folks, the verdict is in. I'm Chuck Joyner. This has been the Mac Jury on Mac Voices. We'll be back again soon with more interesting stuff. We hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Mac Voices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Mac Voices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free Mac Voices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by Cashfly at cashfly.com. Okay. We're about to go
Chuck,
to the...
all I'm saying is you could have eaten the tie and killed two birds with one stone.
Oh,
What's wrong with the tie? What's wrong? Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into symbols of patriarchal corporate oppression, be cool.
I have that on
That's-
the recording, and that's going to be an outtake. I swear to God.
That's your own private Idaho, Chuck, my dear.